Hey everyone, my name is Jordan. I am the head daddy's boy and Daddyhunt ambassador with one of our favorite daddies of all time, Jim Newman. Jim, why don't you
Hey
introduce?
guys, how are you?
I'm actually in the Daddy Hunt apartment from the Daddy Hunt Serial almost 10 years ago now. And I'm very happy to be chatting with Jim today about his time working on the serial and then everything that's happened since then. Jim, could you just introduce yourself and tell us a little about your background outside of what people may know about you from the Daddy Hunt Serial?
All right. Hey guys, I'm Jim Newman. I live in New York City. I am an actor and a singer, and that's what I've been doing for the last 40 years for my profession.
Nice. And how did you get involved with the Daddy Hunt Serial? How was it approached to you, and what did you first think?
You know what? The true story is actually Ray, who was the director and co-writer of it. He saw my profile on Scruff and I got left me a message on Scruff. Normally, I would get these auditions through my agents, but he sent me a message. And at the time, I think I was a village person. That's what I was doing for a living. I was the cowboy and the village people on tour, and so I wasn't working as closely with my agent. So I got a message from him, and we started talking. Of course, I thought it was like you know, a come on or a scam line, but he was serious, and he said, "No, it's we're shooting this commercial for an app for." I thought it was like a hookup app for older guys and younger guys. That was my assumption. And so I went to the audition just like any regular audition. They gave me the copy, and I read for them, and they made some adjustments. And I read again, and that was it. And then they called me like a couple of days later and offered me the job.
Awesome. And did you know what Daddy Hunt was, or?
I did not. I did not know what it was actually. And what's interesting is about it because most hookup apps, it's like like a sexy guy in a locker room, and it's very very extremely sex driven, right? So when I read the script, it was very sweet and romantic, and I was like, I don't think this is going to fly. I mean, this is just not how gay guys respond, or at least that's how I thought. Obviously I was wrong, and them thinking outside of the box was the smartest thing they could have ever done, because I mean, clearly it took a temperature that of the gay community that we just want to fall in love like everybody else, right? And they just hadn't seen a lot of romance content like that. And
Yeah.
I think that's why it just took off like wildfire, literally all over the world. It's the craziest. I mean, it's the thing I get recognized for still to this day more than anything I've done, whether it's Broadway shows or movies or it's Daddy Hunt. And it's still happening. You know,
That's amazing. Do you identify as a daddy?
it's interesting. When it started, my generation didn't have like what we know as a daddy now as a subset. If there was just a sugar daddy, and it was an old guy who wasn't necessarily in shape, but he had enough money that he could get young guys to date him or be with him, or and I'm not denigrating that, because I did have a friend who was a sugar daddy, and he was like, listen, don't feel bad for me, everybody brings something to the table. I have finances, that's what I bring to the table. And but I just didn't well, I'm not a sugar daddy, so there's no sugar in this daddy, so there was that. And also it felt old, and I know my numbers, but I just feel still like a big kid inside. So it was a tough thing, but I will say I was schooled on it by I was in Hell's Kitchen where I live, and I'd gone to a bar with friends, and the bars are much younger, and and it had been about, I think the first season had maybe just come out, and but just barely. And I was walking by, and this Twinkie guy goes, "Ooh, daddy," and I was just like, "Ugh." And he grabbed my shoulder, and he's like, "What was that?" And I was like, "No, no, it's not you. The daddy thing. I just don't feel old." He was like, "You need to hear this." He was like, "If someone calls you daddy, that means they think you're sexy. Because if they don't think you're sexy, they're not going to say anything at all. They're just going to let
Yeah.
you walk past." And he was 100% right. And now I've totally embraced daddy. And now when I hear someone say daddy, I hear the compliment. I don't hear, "Oh, you're old." And also, I am old. So why am I running from it? I'm not going to dye my beard and get
Yeah. No.
Botox. I'm just going to own it. And then people that are attracted to that, and turns out there's a lot of them who are into daddies. I liked daddies when I was younger. I had several experiences with older guys that were amazing. So I get it. I get it now. I own it, and I don't run from it. And I don't totally fetishize it. So if I'm fetishized, if someone's at a bar, that's fine. But in a relationship, I don't want to be a fetishized daddy. But the word daddy, or someone calling me daddy, doesn't bother me at all. I completely embrace it. Yeah.
I
I mean,
appreciate.
now it's part of my brand.
Yeah.
Thanks to Daddy Hunt, it's part of my brand because
Well,
Daddy Hunt blew up my social media.
and if there's other guys who are kind of like in your age group or kind of getting to that point, what advice would you give on how to embrace that daddy and kind of lean into that personality or side of themselves?
Well, here's the thing about getting older. You're going to get older. You can't run from that, right? So you can just for men your beard up, or you can go to Turkey and get 5 hair transplants. You can do all this stuff to your face, but I don't think anyone is fooled by it, right? We can see the gray underneath the beard that's coming out. We can see the flat black. We can see it, right? So what that telegraphs really is, I'm terrified of getting older and I'm insecure, right? And that is just never a sexy thing to telegraph. So just own what you have. And I think that's not just like for me, like I have a bald spot, right? And I just rock it. I'm like, I got a bald spot. I'm 60 years old. I'm supposed to have a bald spot. I got gray beard. I actually like it. I like the way it looks. I like the way it looks on other people. So I just think whatever you have, just own it with confidence. And I promise you, there's somebody that is super into that thing that you hate about yourself. Someone else, that is the thing they love. And I've had weird things in other guys that I think are like little hair on the top of their back. Like, I dated a guy and I called him Bilbo Baggins, but it was so sexy to me that he didn't shave it, that he kept it and rocked it. Like, yeah, that's my hair. That's what I got. And to me, even on young guys, that's whether you have hair on your shoulders, just own it and then wait for the people who are into that to come around.
I
That's my,
agree, and the right people will find you, and you're looking.
yes.
That's great. So you said the interaction with the guy at the bar was probably like 10 years ago, right? Have
Yeah.
the persona or the perception of daddy within the gay community change throughout then?
Well, now it is completely a subset of the gay community, and it's considered sexy. I mean, most of daddies, there's like muscle daddies, and then there's some guys that are just into really. Oh, I know a guy who's really handsome. He only likes guys 60 plus, and they don't necessarily have to be in shape, but he's got an amazing job. And I remember I went to a party in Fire Island. It was like the morning party or something, and it was so fun to be with him because he's really cute and really sweet. He's Canadian, and these guys that were all like steroided, they'd done everything right. They looked perfect and they were flirting with him. And he wasn't rude to them. He just didn't see them. They just were not on his radar because he liked older guys. And it was really funny to watch these guys that thought they'd done everything right, but you're still not going to be attracted to everybody, no matter what you do, right? So now I think daddy has become, not just for me, for a lot of guys, it's like a sexy subset of the community. Just daddy means a sexy older guy who brings, experience and maybe interesting stories, and they're less concerned about how many who followed you and who didn't follow you and who unfollowed you and who liked your pic. We don't give a shit about that. We're not going to waste any energy with any kind of jealousy over that, or at least most of the day.
Hmm.
We don't even think about that, right?
That's great. Were there any moments from the Daddy Hunt serial that stood out, whether behind the scenes or while it was kind of being released, that are meaningful or just fun memories for you?
You know what? I think my favorite memory was the end of season 2. It was the kiss, the big kiss that had been building up with, and I think because there was so much built up about it, and we were drinking red wine in the scene. We're low budget, right? We don't have, no one went out and got a fake red wine. They just went to some corner store and drinking the wine, and so we are getting a lot of notes on the scene. So me and BJ had, it lasted longer than we thought. So about 2 hours or 2.5 hours in, we were a little tipsy, so we were a little bit drunk. So when you watch the ends of those scenes, you can't see it, but we absolutely were a little bit drunk on wine. And after we left, we went and had drinks after, and we were both like, wow, we should have maybe slowed down drinking that wine.
Love it.
But actually, I think it makes that moment more honest. That roof. That's my favorite. Still my favorite scene. I think it's so beautifully shot, and the sun's going down. It's New York City. Like if a helicopter goes by, we have to stop and reshoot it because you're dealing with elements. But it's such a sweet, tender, really honest scene, and it was for a dating app. You don't see that much. You got to give Carl and Ray credit for really looking outside the box and ahead of the curve with that, because
Totally.
obviously it made a huge impact. It's now is the most successful gay digital series in history. In
Yeah.
history, I
I'll
know.
rewatch that and see if I can pick up on how tipsy.
Right.
So yeah, you said obviously, someone like me, I was just really coming out and figuring out what I was into when that came out, and it caught my eye. That's actually how I got involved in Daddy Hunt in the first place. I was very drawn. by that kind of advertising because I never seen anything like that before, even in media in general. Even gay content at the time in TV shows still kind of the caricature of that. So, you say it's been following you. Is there any particular memories from since then as people recognizing you, or you just like that it's kind of become this like second part of your work and your persona?
Well, what was really interesting was after it went global, because it was so sweet and tender. It got past the censors of countries like Singapore and India that have very strict gay content restrictions. But this one slipped through. There's no real nudity. So what I started getting was, at first I would get like from Indonesia, I would just get like a nude, like a boy nude, just totally nude. No, hello, no, I loved your work, and I didn't know what was going on. I was like, why am I all of a sudden getting these things from Indonesia and India? And I talked to a friend of mine who was from those countries, who was from Indonesia, and he was like, they are so suppressed in that part of their life that they don't even know how to communicate. And they saw this, they Googled you, and this is them saying, I am gay too, and I don't have anybody to talk to. And I was like, but there's hello in every country. He goes, they don't know how to talk yet. They don't have a voice for this. And so I stopped like just deleting them, and I started saying, "Hey," and I realized he was right that some were married, some of them had no one to tell at all in their entire lives, and they don't even actually speak English, so they're speaking to me through Google Translate, which is uses words like "hello, dear," which no one uses anymore, and that. Because I was a 13-year-old kid who had nobody to talk to either, and I had no internet. I had not got to go to a counselor, so I understood that. I understood that lost with not a single soul to talk to, and to me, that is the greatest impact I think that Daddyhunt had for the people who had no voice or no one to talk to. They saw something that didn't represent all the fears they had of a gay community. It had a hope of a gay community. I could find somebody, fall in love, and just have a normal life.
Absolutely. And on a micro level, even, I grew up in New York. It was easier for me to come out and I had to deal with a lot less. It was also the early 2010s. It was a much easier
Right.
time. A lot of the older guys I know had. However, I was into older guys, and that was still a second hurdle I had to get over. That was like, okay, I already did this first thing, and it's cooler and more acceptable to be gay now in whatever 2014 than it was
Yeah.
even 10 years prior. However, I still had to be like, okay, I kind of like older guys. How do I go about that? And I will say the way it was presented and how it was romantic and it was cool, I guess would be the best way to
Yeah.
just like, these are two cool guys, handsome, with good friends, with stable lives who are like naturally falling in love in this way. And one just happens to be older. And I was like, okay, like that's a thing. I was lucky enough to be in New York and I was able to really find those things early and I was very happy with that. So yeah,
Yeah.
worldwide, I mean, just for to even be introduced to this content was great. I was getting other types of content elsewhere, but to still find this niche thing that was almost like look, this is for you at this time when you need it was really useful.
Yeah. It's. I'm wondering if I should talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about it. So this is an exclusive. So I've been single for about 8 months, and I'm on tour with Mamma Mia. So I was just going to have fun and be single for the rest of this tour. About 6 weeks ago, I got a message from a young guy in Canada who was sort of like you, like he was a Christian background, and he had said that he likes older guys. So he thought something was wrong with him. Why do I like older guys? And he found our series, and he sent me a message saying, I thank you so much because I thought something was wrong with me. This showed this is just what I like. It's what I dig. There's nothing. And he eventually went to a therapist. He's like, yeah, you're fine. Nothing's wrong with you. You're good. Came out to his mom, and he's not totally out in the whole world, but he's out to himself and his mom, and he knows he has no guilt or shame about this anymore. And it was really a beautiful thing. And then we started talking, and it turns out he's actually really, really funny. He's much younger than me, and I've never dated younger guys. I dated one when I was 52. I dated one for a couple of years, but he was like master's in engineering and had a fuller beard than I'll ever grow. And so we started talking online and digging each other, and he came to visit me, and I thought I was just going to be like a mentor, right? I thought I was just going to be like a mentor, maybe a mentor with benefits, or something like that. And I was hoping he'd be really young and annoying, and that would help me just move on. It did not happen that way. It was amazing. So now I'm dating this guy who was 22 years old, and I am struggling with all those things that people think like, oh, you're you're having a midlife crisis or something. And it's the opposite. I could not be in a better place in my life, both mentally and just a better place in my life. But this kid, he's smart, he's kind, he's really funny, and he's very easy to talk to. And I don't know what's happening. It's hard imitating life, I guess. But I'm having to work on, because people are they're gonna see that, right, and they're gonna say, oh, he's a sugar daddy, right? He's this kid, like, they're gonna make these assumptions about the relationship, but the relationship is actually none of those things. It actually, I met him, we started talking, he was really funny and really smart, and I was like, wow, this guy's a really good guy. He's gonna make somebody a good boyfriend one day. And then it started getting romantic, and then he came to visit me, and it was amazing. And so now he's gonna come see me again for a couple of weeks. And I mean, the life experience thing is so different. Who knows where it's going to go? But I'm really not living for who's going to 20 years from now. I did that once when I was 32, and I let someone go just because of their number, and it was a mistake, right? It's like someone letting me go because I'm too old, right? Because it's you just find a connection and then focus on that and then see if it's good. And then, as long as it's good, I'm going to keep exploring it. So now I
Yeah.
am living my actual daddy hunt reality right now.
Well, congratulations.
He's
It's
probably
very
going to kill me for telling this, because
well.
I didn't
Hey,
say his name. No one knows. He's got an anonymity.
that's
But
fine. But now amazing, and I think yeah, it further shows yes, perception is scary, and what other people think is a really big part of it. That's something that I still deal with even in my late 20s, dating older guys. But it's it's when you have a connection, and whether it's physical or even just an emotional, social attraction that kind of turns into something more.
yeah,
When it happens, and as long as it's a healthy and communicative relationship, then that sounds great.
yeah. And my best friend, when I was young, I actually, he and his partner, I was doing a show with his partner, was much younger than he was, and his partner and I did a play together, and then we went over. I had a party at their house, and it turned into a three-way, which I was like still in the closet, like had no idea what was going on. But he turned into my best friend, and he's a therapist, and he was really good about keeping my mind open and not judging things, all kinds of things, like myself, my deep Southern Christian roots, all that stuff. And he was a really good influence, and to this day he's my best friend. I'm going to see him in a couple of weeks. And so I thought that's what I would be for this kid, because I was really grateful to have someone like that in my life, right? Because it's so easy to just pile all this guilt and shit on yourself. And so even with this kid, I'm going to work on not saying the age with a giggle, like I'm embarrassed, right? Because I don't really give a shit. But I know that the world is going to give a shit. I mean, I know my family's going to be like, "What are you doing?" And I've said that to friends. Like, my best friend married like a young trainer, and they're so happy. They've been together 6 years. My best friend that I'm telling you about, was my mentor. He's had two relationships. Both of them were 25 years or older plus, and they've been together. The first one lasted 26 years. This one's lasted 34 years. So it's really about the connection. It's about the
Yeah.
person, what we really should be focusing on. But as a society, we look at the outside and we judge, and then you have to deal with that in public, right?
Yeah. Something I talk with Carl, who's the Daddyhunt CEO, for those who don't
Yeah.
know him, is that a advantage of being in the gay community and gay world is that there aren't really many differences between us between ages. We listen to the same music, we generally go to the same parties and same places,
Right.
vacation destinations, and we because we're not kind of burdened by the you get married on this day, have a family on this day,
Right.
or flexibility and freedom, which I love. And that Carl's older than me, and we've been friends for a decade. I've known you. I have friends of all different ages, younger or 30, 40 years older than me, that like, in a way are kind of just sometimes can just be friends. It doesn't have to have any of those connotations. And I think one of the advantages of the gay community is that we can have those relationships
Yeah.
with all types of people and find commonalities that we're very lucky to have.
Yeah. I volunteered this. It's basically a high-end soup kitchen, but I'm doing it for years, and it just became part of my social life. But the people who work there, most of them are gay, because it started out of the AIDS crisis. And like my friend Angelo's 90, my friend Mark he's probably 78. Terry is probably, we don't know. He dyes his hair, and his husband is much younger, but so we don't know his age, but we know he's in his mid to late 70s. And it's interesting listening to because they're a different generation than me of gay, right? So they grew up when it was really underground, and like Angelo's very buttoned up and very proper, and John is more like a bathhouse guy, and it's interesting listening to their life, and what they all unanimously said to me, that like if they'd known now how at some point you do become sort of invisible almost. It's not like you're gross. It's just that you don't be seen as a sexual object, right? And I think the daddy phenomenon has given gay men another, if you know, if you stay in shape and take care of yourself, it's given you another 10, 15 years past 50 if you stay in shape. Maybe more, 20. I've seen some super
Totally,
hot
yeah.
70-year-olds, it's true. But that wasn't a thing before this death. So then that's another thing I tell my friends that are dyeing their hair. I was like, take the win. We got to win. We've all got this
Hmm.
dad thing. So we can still be considered sexy just visually at being older. And that didn't exist when I was young. When I was
Yeah.
young, you turned 60, you didn't see people in the clubs out at 50 and 60. You didn't see them at the clubs. I thought they had to go to Palm Springs or, Key West or something.
Sign me up. I love Palm Springs,
I
but
do too. I love Palm Springs too. I love Palm Springs. Now, I went there on a trip with village people, and I
uh,
met a lot of people. There was a big benefit, and I went to their homes, and it was amazing. I loved it. They have, that beautiful, beautiful like mid-century modern architecture, but they also had really fun parties and amazing stories. So you meet all these guys, and one guy was in a space program, was married with two kids. Had these amazing stories, and I was probably 55 or 56, and I'd gone to the gym in Palm Springs, and this guy came over to me. He's like, hey, so have you seen him? He said, so everybody's talking about the new hot guy at the gym. And I was like, which one? He was like, you're the hot guy. I'm like, I'm the young hot guy at the gym. I'm 55. That never happens. But they're like 70. So
mhm.
I was like chicken
Yeah.
at the gym that
Oh,
day.
I love that. Well, you said you're touring with Mamma Mia. If you want to just do a little self promotion for that, or any other projects or social media.
Yeah, I have a couple of projects. You can follow me on Instagram is the best. Jim Newman, keep moving. I'm on TikTok and Facebook, but Instagram is really where I do most. So it's just Jim Newman, keep moving. They took down my other one because my face is used for romance scams. It's been a pain in the ass, but whatever. I guess it comes with once you grow your page, something happens. And then I'm on tour with Mamma Mia right now until the end of June. You can look at mamamiathetour.com, but then we come into Broadway starting in August. So I'll be on Broadway at the Winter Garden, where it open for 6 months, playing
Amazing.
Bill, one of the dads. Yeah, and also I have another project I'm serving with Ray, who directed and co-wrote Daddyhunt, a new project called Pillow Talk. The script is great. It's a great story. So we've just shot part of it. I can't shoot the rest, and it's different age group relationships. It's different, all ethnicities. It's about the gay experience, and it's very, very inclusive. And it's called Pillow Talk because it's five couples talking right after they had sex. So just yeah, it's a really, really interesting story. So keep a lookout for that. It's going to be a couple of years before that gets released. But
Can't wait
yeah.
to see it. Congrats with everything going on with Mamma Mia, and I'll find you on Broadway too. So,
Okay. Thanks, Jordan. I appreciate it.
all right. Thanks, Jim.
See you guys. Thank you for all the love all these years. It has been a little bit overwhelming and in a beautiful, beautiful way. So I really, really appreciate that, guys. Honestly, it did really changed my life in a way because it changed the way I saw myself, but also it just changed the way people saw me. I could never play a gay character. I could never ever get cast as gay. I've been straight for pay my whole entire career, and then Daddyhunt happened, and then I've gotten a few gay roles since then. So thank you.
Love to hear it. All right. Talk to you
You
soon, Jim.
guys.